Okay, well, welcome everybody, and hello to everyone who might be watching this later on of the replay. Thank you for joining us. My name is Jessica Korff, and I'm the owner of Fleur Photography, focusing mainly on headshots and branding. But I've also recently launched Women in Business Magazine, Success REfashiond, which is what we're on right now. But the goal is really about supporting growth and visibility for local women in business. So thank you all for joining us on this today. In our current situation, the layout of how business is being run has definitely changed. In order to continue serving, I decided that it would be a great idea to help everyone else get great information from those who have great information, right? So I decided to begin interviewing other local businesses who are taking this time, they're diving in as opposed to maybe hiding out. They're getting creative, they're making an impact, or they have expertise that can help guide the rest of us through these super uncertain times. Today I have with me Tabitha Danloe with the Divine Sophia. Thank you, Tabitha, for joining us. Go ahead. I'm going to let you go ahead and introduce yourself. Tell us all about you and what you do.
Okay. So again, I'm Tabitha Danloe, and I'm a professional certified coach. And I live here in Tucson, Arizona with my awesome husband and my 2 fur babies who I am obsessed with. If you follow me on social media, you will see Shadow and Scooby alongside everything, including, hanging out with clients when we are not social distancing. When I am not working, because truly being a coach is not just what I do, it's who I am. And it took me many years to find my calling and to get there. But now that I'm here, I love to work and I love to help support lots of entrepreneurs and small business owners and leaders throughout the whole world community. For fun, I love anything nature. I'm huge nature. Actually, even before this, I went and just took a 10-minute walk to get really grounded and centered with myself, to be really present for you all today. Love hiking, and I love like deep nature and super roughing it. Like the more rough, the better, which seems very strange, but I love it. Okay. I also love dancing, specifically West African dancing. So I've studied West African dance for almost 8 years now, which is kind of a unique, specific dance to study, but I just love it with everything that I am, and the drums and the metaphor that's in the dance and the tradition within the dance. It's quite lovely and beautiful. And then when the border is not shut down, I love to go to Mexico and scuba dive. So I also am an advanced scuba diver and have been diving since I was 16. So that's one of my peaceful is deep in nature, whether it's on a hike or, 60 feet below the water. So that's just a little bit about me and kind of personal. As a professional certified coach, I am an integrative coach predominantly. So what that really means is that I help support individuals, whether it's in their life, in their business, or as leaders running big companies or big teams. And to me, it's all doable and it's all possible to support them because I have a very integrative lens, which means I'm looking at the whole person all the time, and the personal aspect and how it touches the business, and the deeper parts of ourselves that we sometimes forget that we need to give time and attention to. So I have been a coach for almost 5 years now. I can't believe it's been almost 5 years, and I absolutely love what I do. I've worked with broke, startup businesses to multi-million-dollar companies. I've worked with individuals as young as 15 all the way up to 78 and everything in between, because it's integrative. And that to me is the most important part of coaching, is looking deeper within ourselves to our inner wisdom and integrating into the biggest place of abundance that we can, whether it be for life, business, or more. So that's just a little bit about me.
Let me get off mute there. My keyboard shortcut sometimes works, sometimes doesn't. I love how reliable it is.
I had that problem too.
Well, thank you. I'm so glad you're here. And I always love hearing about all of your interests, because I think that they're just so fascinating and so different. Like, I like to read a book, and she's like, I like to do African dancing. I love it.
I love to read books too and take naps. I'm really good at Netflixing and napping too. So.
It's fun. Okay. So tell me a little bit more about your situation right now. How has the pandemic affected you? Have you found yourself having to do anything different? What has it done to your business?
Great question. So everyone has been affected in some way, shape, or form, right? And I did have some initial attrition. Some clients who have been so majorly affected had to immediately cease coaching and many other things to pay the bills, right? To just make the little ends meet. So that was, kind of to be expected. And how I chose to pivot that was some of these business owners I've been working with for well over a year, maybe 2 years, and there is no way I was going to leave them to traverse this alone. So I got really quickly just, in communication of, hey, if you really want to stop coaching, that's totally cool. Or do we move you to a sliding scale? Do we talk about barter? And frankly, for one of them, it was just call me as you need me, pro bono. We've been through so much together. There's no way I'm going to let you deal with this by yourself. So that was something that was really clear to me, was that during these times, we have to pivot and we have to adjust. So that was the first thing. Now, I had always had a mix of virtual in my business because I see clients, I've had clients actually all over the world, which is super cool and hard to believe still sometimes, but I still saw a little cluster in person here in Tucson. And so it was pretty easy to move that little 40% that was face-to-face to virtual. A lot of people have been making that pivot and switch. And now it's funny, maybe week one, we're like, what is this Zoom thing we're doing? And, now it's like, okay, we're kind of getting used to that. And I also had to make the transition to my workshops. I teach a lot of workshops and work with a lot of teams. So that was another transition, is moving them into an online format as well. And I did a workshop just before this call and it was so much fun. So they're still just as effective, just as awesome as before. And then the other little piece is having to really think about more ways that I can meet people's needs, whether it be limited financial resources, although some people haven't had financial impact, right? So kind of meeting the broadness at the time. So I have an online group that I'm actually starting next week called Survive or Thrive Series, so that we can really stay focused on thriving during this time and not stay in that super survival mode, because it just doesn't serve us. So looking at kind of some different formatting of business to meet the needs right now.
It works. All right. The Survive and Thrive series. Can people find that on your website if they want to find out more about it?
They will later today when I finish posting it.
Excellent.
I'll have it on Facebook and my website.
All right. Awesome. So I'd love to just kind of get into the meat of the interview now. What do you have for us today? What tips or exercises can you offer us with everything going on? How can you help everyone in this room and beyond?
Yes. So I have a few things that I hope will really speak to you guys today. I want to start by talking about our survival instinct, and that's often fight, flight, freeze, or appease. We don't hear about that fourth one a lot, the appeasing one. How many of you, on a show of hands, have felt a little bit in survival mode through this process? Like, okay, pretty much everyone has felt it in some way, shape, or form, and that's okay. We are dealing with a huge shift in our normalcy, a huge shift in our world, and like an actual life-threatening virus. So the actual survival part is kicked in for a reason. And so that's true. And is it the only truth? Is it our only truth? Right. So here's something that's super fascinating, is I have some clients that legit are having the greatest financial, spiritual, personal, business abundance that they have ever faced in their entire lives. And for whatever reason, some of them are in an industry that is providing essential services and they're just maxed out. Some of them are providing maybe not an essential service. I have one client that sells a musical instrument, and we do import export from Africa, actually. And they're having record sales, and they have met the love of their life, and they're getting married in like a month. Right? So now they're social distancing with this new love of their life that they're about to start their lives with, right? So that's something that we have to keep in mind, is that while the survival urge is there, the thrive is still an option. It's always an option, and it's literally a choice and a mindset shift. And that's way easier said than done. I totally realize that. But I invite you to the possibility that thriving is still very much possible. And here's the thing: if we stay in this fight, flight, freeze, appease mode, we cannot step into possibility, because our mindset in that mode just super narrows. Like, we are just focused on those immediate needs. The next thing, we're very reactionary often, so we're not seeing that bigger picture. So we have to shift our mindset so that we can see the bigger possibilities, so that we can successfully pivot our lives, our businesses, our relationships, whatever that may be. It's in the greatest times of pressure that we have our greatest times of innovation. And so it's been really fun to be working with my clients. While stressful and hearing some of the sadness, we've had incredible, amazing innovation conversations on how to shift and pivot, but we have to change our mindset first. So how do you do that? Oh, there's one other thing before I explain the how. Has anyone felt a limiting of capacity right now? So when I say capacity, that's kind of like, 2 months ago, I could have, worked my 8-hour day and cooked dinner for the kids and, got up and exercised and, did some meditation later in the day. And that was like a normal, easy day. So capacity is kind of our ability to absorb, to handle, just our capacity, our container. Okay. So some people have really been feeling a strain with capacity. Like, oh my gosh, I did this 2 months ago and now I can't even feed myself 3 meals a day or shower or just do it all, because our capacity has shifted. Our needs have shifted. Some of us have kids 24/7 now, right? Where we used to send them off to school. So has anyone felt a capacity shift? Just to be honest. Yep. Okay. So this goes with that mindset. When we're in a survival mindset, we have limited capacity because we're only focused on our immediate needs and reacting to those immediate situations and things around us. So if we want to open up our capacity again, try to see the possibilities that can exist for our business and our life, we have to shift our mindset back into thrive. So how do we do that? That's the $1 million question, right? So the first thing, and you're not going to love my answer, guys, but just trust me, okay? The first thing we have to do is accept and allow. We have to accept and allow first. So what I mean by that is a lot of us, I did this for week 1. I will totally own it. A lot of us have been numbing out with some Netflix and some Oreos. Yes. And that was really helpful for week 1 when there was a ton of uncertainty and we just really weren't sure what was going on. But staying there doesn't quite serve us, right? And so by accepting and allowing, I'm talking about the discomfort of maybe feeling some feelings. Some of us have not cried or have not thrown a pillow or have not, yelled at the TV screen, or however it is that you are feeling. We have not allowed ourselves to go there because it feels like we will never come back. It feels like it is so giant. How could we possibly get through this? I promise you that is not the truth. I promise you. It just feels that way. So we have to acknowledge how we're actually feeling, where we're really at. Totally accept it. Totally move through it. I know you don't like that answer. You can't go around it or under it. We got to go through it. So that could look different for every single person. It could be speaking with your spouse, a loved one, and really letting yourself be vulnerable and cry. It might be throwing on some boxing gloves and having some time to punch a pillow or get it out. But it's really naming, what emotion are you feeling? And some of us might actually be feeling true grief right now. Our society has a terrible way of thinking grieving is only for losing people. Some of us have lost people through this hideous, hideous disease. But a lot of times our society is like, but grief is just for the people. No, it's not. Many people are feeling a sense of grief and they don't even know what to name it because we've lost a sense of normalcy. Many of us are feeling grief because we just miss seeing our friends and giving them a hug or like going to happy hour, right? And then we might feel guilty, like, but we're in first world, we still have running water, we still have these things. And so now we're guilting and shaming on ourselves, and we're not simply allowing so we can move through it. So that's step one, is to really allow and accept what you're feeling, move through it. And I promise it's going to last way shorter than you think it will. Promise. Pinky promise.
So I'm going to bring up really quick, because this is why you and I decided that you should come on, because when I kicked off this whole series, it was about helping people figure out, how are you going to shift? How are you going to keep your business going? And I felt like in the process, I was almost, I don't want to say encouraging, but I was watching people not deal with what's actually happening. Or on the other side, they were frustrated because they felt like they should deal with it, but they were also trying to figure out how to do this shift. And they were ignoring it and trying to push through. So I started seeing that people weren't allowing the space to just feel what's happening, and to know that even though we're talking about how to shift and get your business changing with the times right now, that it's so okay to just sit and allow. Like it's okay that there's permission there. So I'm so glad that you're on talking about this, because that became a big piece I was seeing, is that people felt like they weren't okay to do that.
Yeah. And it's like a continuous process. So my first big allow moment was probably a week into this, when I just needed to seriously cry and spend a day just feeling and grieving. And, it wasn't the whole day, but I gave myself the day, and it probably took an hour, to be completely honest. So that's what I mean. It feels like it's bigger than it is. And I've had moments of even anger. I took a hike last week. I finished my day at 6:00, and my husband's like, "Where are you going?" I'm like, "I gotta go." And I just, put all of my energy into that hike. And I felt so good afterwards. And that was when I got the idea for that group series to help people more. As soon as I moved through it, innovation is on the other side. Curiosity is on the other side. Total openness and possibilities is on the other side once we move through the emotion. Because think of it as like a blocked pipe. Our creativity, our curiosity, our innovation is so much tied with emotions, actually. There's a lot of data and research on this. So we have to allow so that we can create. Step 2 is getting back to basics. Oftentimes, when suddenly our world has shifted, we lose every structure and good habit that we've worked really hard to build. So get back to basics. What do you need to do to self-care every single day? Are you waking up at the same time, going to bed at the same time? What's your wake up routine, your go to bed routine? You re-implement some of those good habits that serve you, that maybe you haven't been doing as consistently. Eating healthy, eating at all, eating 3 meals a day, right? Whatever that looks like for you. This is not a one size fits all set of basics. It's your basics. Get back to your basics. Maybe it's a meditation. I highly, highly always recommend some form of movement. Exercise is good too, but I'm literally just talking about movement can help move the emotion through, moving some of the allowance and the accepting. Maybe it's some light yoga, some light stretching, going for a walk, whatever it is to you. And other basics that don't seem so subtle. Like, did you used to listen to a lot of music? I've talked to some people that are like, "Oh my gosh, I forgot. I used to listen to music all the time. Why? I'm sitting in silence and it's deafening." Get back to music. Get back to movement. Whatever the basics are, get back to that. And ask yourself what it is that I truly need. When you're feeling a sense of anxiety or overwhelm or paralysis, we can ask our inner selves, what is it that I need right now that I'm not getting? Oftentimes the answer in this world at this moment is, it's uncertain. I need certainty. I need certainty. And does anyone relate to this? And so, hear my heart. We didn't really know what was going to happen tomorrow anyway. We really didn't. It just, the illusion we've lived in for a really long time is just, what we knew. But none of us knew what tomorrow would bring anyway. However, I am pretty certain I know what the next 15 minutes will hold because I'm here with you in that time. I am pretty gosh darn certain I kind of know what today's going to hold at this point because we're halfway through it. So I invite you to get very present. So that's the next step. Get very present back to this moment because we can be very certain of things and really contact ourselves when we come back to the present moment. So once we can do all of this, I promise, and it's in phases. You don't just do this and now you're like, woohoo, smooth sailing. This is a process. It is a practice. I have to come back to this. I have to do these things too, guys. Sometimes I am fighting tooth and nail against myself to get to bed on time. Okay. I'm one more episode, right? But it really matters. Discipline really matters right now for our mental health and for our abundance and for our innovation. But here, back in the present, back in possibility, once we've cleared through and we've allowed and accepted how we're feeling, oh my gosh, I promise you, you guys will have so many ideas come through, innovation, curiosity, and go back to the needs. How can I serve needs in a different way? What needs are not being met in the grand public right now? What needs for my clients are not being met that I can step in and serve a little differently? That's where innovation lives.
Is that what you got? I don't want to interrupt you if you have more.
That's the bulk of it.
Thank you. I think all that's really great. I have a question. How do you make that jump from kind of still you're waiting? I almost feel like sometimes I'm just waiting in this pool, right? Waiting for something to change. How do you make that jump from that to getting more disciplined? Talking little baby chunks, little baby steps, or do you need to fill out your paper, figure out what your discipline should look like and get on it?
It's going to look different for every single person, but it starts with self-awareness. Check in on yourself throughout the day. This might look like setting alarms. It might be having an agreement with your spouse or a family member that you're with right now to have 3 check-ins throughout the day and talk about what you're feeling, where you're really at, and what you're struggling with. Maybe it's a coach if you have a coach or an accountability buddy that you're working with too. It sounds super silly, but it's not. It starts with self-awareness. From there, for some, the more organized types, maybe they want that list. I actually put one together a while back on what have I always done that's part of my routine? And I went through it and I calculated the times out and I was like, yeah, that's kind of been my norm. Can I keep that going in this shift? Yeah, I actually can. For some people, they might need to adjust that more, but for a lot of us, actually, we can still do a lot of the things we used to. For some, it might be a more subtle thing. That self-awareness, again, checking in that moment. If you're about to meet with a client and you have 15 minutes and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm not in a good space right now. Maybe that's a walk. Maybe that's a funny YouTube video. Maybe that's having a quick cry and moving through something again. So it's really starts with self-awareness and then really looking at what are all my options to serve my needs right now? What do I feel like I don't need? How can I meet that need? And then moving quickly as you can back into abundance, back into possibility. And sometimes it's pure willpower, guys. I'm going to watch this last episode and then I will go to bed and I don't want to, but I'm going to. And that's literally what it sounds like in my head. So good
That's
question.
about what I feel like.
Anyone else feel that? They're like dragging themselves, willpower.
Okay, so does anybody have, I would like to open it up. Does anybody have a couple of questions before I go on to any other ones? Have questions for Tabitha? You can unmute yourself.
There's no silly questions, by the way.
No? Okay. All right, if something comes up, just you can put it in the chat that you have one, and I'll make sure I open it up to you next. All right, a couple of other questions I have. How about, I feel like you deal with so many emotions with people. So, and there's definitely a lot of fear. When there's uncertainty, it's like connected with fear. So how do you overcome fear? And what's your best tip for helping someone else to overcome something that scares them as well?
Love this question. So fear is a huge part of our lives, and I have experienced a lot of fear. Please do not assume that I never have fear because I'm a coach. I got a lot of fear. And what matters is what we choose to do with it. Okay. So the first thing that I find is really helpful is to acknowledge, the fear and realize it, because we're really good at distracting ourselves. Maybe that's when we start to do some binge watching, or we start to, we're going to have a second bottle of wine tonight, or, so notice that behavior. And if you're avoiding actually looking at the fear. So, and that's a process, and there's no judgment. Sometimes I can do it real fast, and sometimes it's a little bit of a walk to finally be like, oh, all right, let's look at this fear. Now, once we're looking at it, we can ask a really simple question. Is this real fear? Meaning, am I going to die? Like, is this like a real thing? Or is it false evidence appearing real? FEAR, so false evidence appearing real. A lot of times that's what's really going on. And here's the fascinating thing. Fear and excitement come from the same place in your brain. And we learned most of our fears. We were born with two fears. That's the fear of falling and the fear of loud noises. We have learned everything else. We've inherited that from society, parents, siblings, you name it. Okay. So once I can finally look at the fear, I ask, is this real? Or is it false? Maybe it's a little blending of the two sometimes. And then I start to sort it out and say, okay, what's the part that's like really something to be afraid of? What do I want to do with that? Is that a problem that needs to be solved? Is that a need that needs to be met? And then I start to go into solution mode. Okay. If it's false evidence appearing real, and that's 98% of the time, truly what we are experiencing, guys, because we still, regardless of the situation at hand, we still can go safely to the grocery store with, our face covered, maybe some gloves, or just wash your hands, right? So there's still ways that we can stay safe. But if it's false evidence appearing real, I can ask the question, all right, since fear and excitement come from the same place, can I get excited about a different possibility? Okay, if I'm looking at it through this lens, what if I looked at it like this way? Could I get excited about a different possibility? What if I'm fearing the most will never happen and something really great could come out of this? Okay. This sounds kind of strange, but curiosity is a really good bridge. I'll say that again. Curiosity is a great bridge. Well, this could be true, but I'm curious if there's any other possibilities. I'm curious what might also be true. And then at the end of the day, sometimes you have to feel the fear, do it anyway. Great book if you haven't read, by the way. You just have to move through it. But maybe you can move through it with a little excitement and realize, oh, is this like anticipation instead of fear? Is this adrenaline instead of fear? Maybe it's really fear. Okay, that sucks. But we have to do it anyway. And maybe that's when you call your best friend, or you go to your spouse and you talk about it, and you have someone hold your hand, even if it's virtually, and you do it anyway. So those are kind of my steps for moving through fear and what I do and what I found really helps a lot of my clients. I hope that helps. Does it resonate with anyone? Yes or no?
Yeah, it does with me.
I have a comment about fear. Something that I have a hard time remembering in the moment, but is really useful for me most of the time when I'm thinking logically, is that it's a saying that I've always told myself, and it's that fear of a thing is always worse than the thing itself. That's always been my experience. Something that I'm afraid of or anticipating or scared might happen, even if that thing really does happen and come to pass, it's never as bad as I feared.
No.
So that's something that I'm trying to keep in mind even now when things are challenging, or, you know, it's easy to go down the water slide of fear right now.
And the what ifs and the what ifs and what ifs. Yeah, I love that. And I 100% agree with that. Often the reality of the situation, even as bad as it is not as scary as what we experience just thinking about it. You know, the roller coaster ride. I love that analogy. There's excitement, there's adrenaline, there's the what if, the curiosity, you know, as you go down that first hill. But the anticipation of standing in line is like, at least for me it is. So, but I love roller coasters, but I have to remember, you like it on the other side. You like it on the other side. The other thing, Morgan, that you reminded me of was fear only has half the answer. It's really just telling us what we don't want, like loud telling us what we don't want, but your heart has the other half, and that's what you do want. So fear is sometimes a great reminder to come back to heart and say, okay, well, I hear that this is what I don't want. This doesn't serve me. This scares me a lot. What do I want? And that's kind of the switch back to curiosity and possibility and looking at something through a different angle or a different lens.
Great. I love that. I love the questions you have us asking. I think those are really good ones. Does anybody else have any comments or questions around that, or on fear, or working through it? All right.
Questions? I have a quote that I'd like to give you guys. Courage is not a performance. It is a practice. Courage is not a performance. It is a practice. It is not a one-time thing. It is a daily practice. And that's the best antidote to fear, is courage.
That's great. I'm curious because you're also really familiar with the Enneagram. Like side rail here a minute. Get you talking. It's going to turn into another 2 hours on the Enneagram. But
I'd be okay with that, but probably not.
Do you think that people, based on, say, the Enneagram, they would address fear differently even?
Yes. So the Enneagram, for those of you who do not know what that means, is a really robust, ancient personality framework. I use it along with DISC and Myers-Briggs, which a lot of people are familiar with, but the Enneagram is like robust. And it actually tells me as a coach when I'm working with someone what their deepest fear pattern is. I know that sounds like sadistic, but it's really helpful as a coach to understand how they're truly hardwired with fear. I have a free test you can take on my website, just like right at the top, there's a little button. It takes maybe 5 minutes to answer some questions, but it is a process to discover your Enneagram type. So the test just kind of gets it started, and then you and I kind of take it from there and I help you figure it out. But it's a phenomenal tool because we do approach fear differently. The Enneagram has 9 types throughout the population. So there's kind of 9 specific ways that we approach fear. So knowing your flavor can help you to overcome it that much faster, more efficiently, and not stay in it as long. So I love that you brought up the Enneagram because I kind of wanted to earlier, but I didn't want to throw a wrench in things. So yeah, the Enneagram has been a #1 tool for me, game changer for so many of my clients in overcoming fear.
Well, I know before we talked about what my type might be, I know that I struggled with fear massive. Like I was pretty positive every single day I was going to die from something without even realizing it. I was just afraid of every single thing. And it was out of control. But knowing what you are, I've noticed it's able to help me like look at how I'm reacting, because now I have knowledge that I didn't have before. So I was just totally almost a victim of just what is constantly happening. So if you don't know it, I encourage you to get with Tabitha and find out. Does everybody here know what their Enneagram is?
I know some of you know what Enneagram is.
If you know yours, what are you? You can unmute yourself or hold up your fingers.
Flash
Yeah.
the number sign.
I've taken it a couple different times, and I've come up with, I think the state of my brain and where I've been has kind of given me different outcomes. And I know we've chatted about this a long time, like on the other side of San Francisco. But I want to say it's like 279, I think.
Okay. So I could probably help you get to the bottom of that, because I've been doing Enneagram we're going on to my 9th year. 9 years. I love the Enneagram. I actually, the workshop I did before I met all of you wonderful people today was an Enneagram workshop. So I love the Enneagram. I'm obsessed with it, maybe just a little bit. So
well, I know that every test I took always came up saying I was a 1. But there were some pieces I was like, I don't know. Like I can see a lot of it, but I don't know a lot of it. And Tabitha was helping me work through it. And she's like, no, I'm pretty sure like we're looking at it. It looks like a 6. And she printed it up. And one of the first sentences on there is like, they always get confused for 1s. So I thought that was really hilarious. Adna said it's the first time she's ever heard of this. And I suggest you either go with Tabitha or you check it out. It's really, really, I think it's a great tool personally. So now you all know that I am a 6.
And I am a 6 as well.
I have Tabitha's book on hand right next to my desk. I was just looking at it yesterday. Yeah. Disappeared there. Yeah. Because I forgot what number I was, but I think I'm a 6 and then a 1 and then a 3. And even taking Tabitha's workshop, I still wasn't totally clear. And that's my nature. So.
Well, and that's why I love the Enneagram, is it's not about putting people in the box. It's not that simple. And it accounts, actually, the Enneagram has so many dynamics and variations. And I really can't, I like need to not go into too much because I'll lose you guys. But I just love that, because we are Walt Whitman said it best. Do I contradict myself? Very well, I contradict myself. I'm large. I contain multitudes. Yes, we do. And we actually have all of the 9 types within us. But when fear hits, we have one typical default pattern. And that's why I love the Enneagram, is under stress, under fear, under pressure, we have a really predictable pattern that 100% is a box that we live in. We just don't see it because we're surviving again, right? So that's why I love the Enneagram. And I've helped a lot of businesses even implement it for clients. If you're client facing or business facing, using that can really help move clients forward too, depending on what you're doing. So.
Awesome. Does anybody else have any questions about the Enneagram? Anna, do you have any other ones? I know that you're first time hearing it.
Nice to see you, Anna.
Hi. No, thanks. But I think that, I can't wait to check it out.
Yeah.
I think it's one of those things where kind of knowledge is power, right? If you know about what your tendencies kind of are, if you've recognized them from outside the moment, then you're able to really see them when the moment comes faster. It's been the experience for me anyways.
It helped me really understand my partner as well. There were some things that I couldn't make sense of because we're just so different. And once I learned his type, I was like, oh. Especially because there was an individual in our workshop with Tabitha who was the same number as him. And I was like, oh, I could ask him some questions to try to understand my partner better. And it was really helpful.
Good.
It allowed me to just accept him and his way. He's kind of socially awkward. So that is confusing to me and I don't understand it. And so it really helped me understand that that's just the way he is. And these are the other components of that. And sometimes it's easier to see that in other people than ourselves because we see so many complexities in ourselves.
Yeah.
So anyway, it's helpful.
Thank you. Yeah, whether it's, you know, a intimate relationship, relationship with your kids, your family, your team, colleagues. It's been such a game changer for me. And I know for so many people, it just helps us get really specific with their preferred way of communicating, with how they're truly put together and hardwired as a person. So, yeah.
Excellent. Okay, so my next question is, you know, I hear people saying they're really sick of this word pivot, which, but it is the case. And if you're not used to having to change everything about your business on a dime to online, then it's kind of scary, right? So, but aside from now, you were talking about too, like, I think back to 2008, lots of amazing, innovative ideas and businesses came out of that. So sometimes when you have to do that, it's actually a blessing in disguise if you let it be. So I would love to hear if you had like a really pivotal moment in your career that kind of changed the way you do business. And then with that in mind, like, so what motivates you to take action and not just sit back and dream and let it just, I guess, take over?
I love this question. So back when that happened, when '08 happened, I actually was a Mary Kay sales director, and I had a Mary Kay car, and I really loved Mary Kay. I started it as a part-time college job and then really loved it and decided to go for it. And so, of course, the recession affected everyone. Like, even if it wasn't directly, it's a trickle down, much like coronavirus. Even if a lot of people aren't directly affected, there's trickle downs, right? And so at the time, I was struggling with a lot of fear, if I'm super honest and a little vulnerable with you guys. And if I'm really honest, I'm slightly embarrassed to admit this, how I dealt with my fear was a lot of TV time. And I literally clocked it one week and figured out I was watching on average 5 hours of television a day. And then I was kind of like, you know, crash and then sit for 5 hours and like try to work myself into movement. And then I'd work for the next 8 to 10 hours. But it was this horrible, like, waffling thing. And I'd played softball for many years. And so I actually love the word pivot because I really just think of baseball and softball. And you're at the bat and you're like, and you got your face on with the pitcher. And then, bunt. And so that's why I love pivot, is that it's a surprise. It's so fast and it's so strategic that I think, just as my businesswoman, I love strategy, right? So I had to have a really honest conversation with myself that the people who are going to not just survive this, but like beyond be thriving in an abundance, they're going to get to work. They're going to be the early bird that gets the worm. They're going to stay up late. They're going to do things differently that no one else has thought of. And if I'm sitting here checking out with television for 5 hours a day, that's not going to work. So what I did was, once I identified kind of my biggest blind spot and roadblock, I tend to kind of be well, let's just do it all. Like, let's just go for it. So I actually gave my television set away. So overnight, cold turkey, I like literally didn't own a TV, guys. And this was before we had, you know, streaming laptops and whatnot. So overnight, I kind of cold turkey gave up television. And suddenly I had to pivot and fill that time a little bit differently and face the fear a little bit differently. And so, you know, the first like week or two kind of was a rough transition. But then after that, I found myself waking up at 5 a.m., listening to inspirational tapes from other Mary Kay people, from, you know, famous people all across the world at 5 a.m., working out while getting inspired. I started, you know, changing the ways that I did things with my business, showing up in different ways. And I actually had a really successful year. And to the point where I did Queen's Court of Sales, which is a really high achievement in Mary Kay. And I started on qualifications for my second Mary Kay car, all in a recession. And I largely give credit to that for not having the television. Not letting myself go into my numb pattern, because I knew that was my pattern. And fun finish of the story, I actually did not own a television for about 3 years. I truly like gave it up and went cold turkey and didn't have TV for like 3 years. And it was one of the smartest, best things I've ever done. And I do have a TV today because my husband requires that. And that was like a non-negotiable in the relationship. But, and I do enjoy a little binging, but I never have gone back to what I used to do. I can stay more mindful and present with when does it serve you to have a moment to like, oh my gosh, I really need to, whoo. Sometimes that's actually serving you. When does it not? When a lot of times we have these one things and it's not good or bad or right or wrong. It's just when does it serve you and when does it not? So that's one's pivot story.
I love Morgan's response over here. If you can't see the chat, she said she's a big fan of not having a TV and that her boyfriend is too, but she doesn't even know how to turn them on. I like it. I wish I could say that. I don't know. My husband's like, we should get a new TV. Like, we have a projector. What do you need? But
and there's no judgment for TVs. I have one now, but that really was one of those moments I had to face reality and face the fear and have an honest talk with myself and realize like, you got to get to work. If you want to stay in this career and you want to thrive, you got to get to work, girl. And so
I think it really helps to keep your brain clear too. I mean, unless you can watch TV and keep that clear yourself, I can't. I get too influenced by what I see and it overwhelms me and just I get frustrated or I get angry or afraid or what have you. And I just find it's better for my brain to stay off of it.
And I'll actually include that with like the news right now. I do watch TV now, but sparingly and extremely rigidly, meaning I never watch horror. I literally watch like cheesy kid movies and Hallmark. Like that's what I love. And it makes me feel happy and good. I'm way too influential like Morgan. And so yet, of course, we need to check the news here and there and know what's going on. I invite you guys to immediately do something positive to fill up that space. Like have a lot of intentionality and self-awareness as you are filling your being. What are we putting into our beings? Make sure you are, counterbalancing that. If there's some negative going on, like go back to the funny videos or the kitty cat memes or whatever your thing is, go take a walk in nature. I've literally Googled good news about coronavirus to like, oh yeah, look at the environment. Oh my gosh, these people helping people. Like, yay, we love each other. And then I'm like, la, 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 and off and running again. So that, back to that awareness, back to that mindfulness, and like, what are you feeding yourself?
Right. Yeah, I was going to say, it's not necessarily about TV. Like, I don't watch the news either, but that's my downtime. Like, I love for me and my husband to sit in the evenings and we will watch several episodes of whatever show we're watching. But the rest of my days are usually fairly productive. I'm going to say outside of coronavirus, I'm much more productive. But that's, and I know that that's my downtime. It's not, whatever. It's about awareness, like you said, I think. So I love that the idea there is pulling the plug on what's a problem that you can't get away from, I think.
Yeah. Again, when does it serve you? When does it not? Hiding in my house for 5 hours a day, numbing out on TV was not the same as sitting down after a long day work, enjoying something with your spouse or just, relaxing. Totally different. So.
Awesome. I guess I'll just let you say, now, is there anything else that you want to touch on or add? Anything else that's really important for people to know right now with everything going on?
Don't forget that you have your greatest answers within. Past the fear, past the doubt, past the freak out. There's really important wisdom within each and every one of us. All of us. I do not care, sex, gender, race, like don't care. We all have beautiful wisdom within that's just waiting to help us through this time. And so as we can get quiet, as we can get back to present, go through the fear, go through the emotions, we can listen to that again. And I have no doubt that that will be a really important guide for each and every one of us if we can get quiet and listen and hear again. And actually, I think that that's the greatest gift that this time is giving us. I think that if we have one giant, obvious silver lining, it's that we can get quiet, we can get still, and we can go within if we choose to. Our world has always been very busy. That's always been really hard. Some distractions, but not so much now. Might be a great opportunity. So I'll leave you with that.
Thank you. I think that's fantastic. I think it's so important that even when we're taking in all of this, that you're also taking in what are the good things that are coming along as well. Well, I want to thank you for all of your incredible knowledge and for taking the time to meet with all of us today. Thank you everyone who joined us, for your contributions, for being here, for just your presence alone. I think adds such a wonderful energy to what we're doing. And how can people best connect with you if they want to learn more, Tabitha?
My website is thedivinesophia.com, and that's Sophia, Sophia spelled that way. I'm also really great with text messaging. I'm a texting champ, not as great with email some days, I'll admit that. So my personal cell, I'm totally comfortable giving that out, is 520-409-2988. I am doing a really special thing right now. I'm sending inspirational text messages like pretty much daily to anyone who wants them, as just that, even if that's your one moment each day of self-awareness and a reminder. So there's no gimmicks, there's nothing weird. It's just text message, inspirational text messages. I know Jessica's getting them. Hopefully
Yes.
She's enjoying them.
They're fantastic.
So text me if you want to be put on that list, and I'll throw you on there real quick, and just, hey, this is so-and-so, shoot me a text. But, and then if you are curious about that Enneagram thing, I have a free test, like homepage on my website. Click the button, it'll send you an email with the test link. So, and I'd love to connect. And if there's truly anything I can do to help right now, I really am here. I offer a complimentary 60-minute coaching session to everyone. That's always been my policy from day one as my gift to the world. So if you really need that right now, or you know someone who really needs it right now, please have them reach out. We all are in this together.
Yep, for sure. Thank you. And I will put also, this is going to get reposted. I will put all of that information Tabitha just gave out in the comments or in the information above the video, so that you can all find her that way as well. And if you want to find out more about what we're doing here at REfashiond Magazine or Fleur de Lis Photography, make sure that you like and follow our pages. You can also sign up for my own personal email series of 7 ways to upgrade your marketing. And I will put that in the links below this video as well. And for the next 2 weeks, I also want to tell you guys, I'm going to announce it to you guys here too, that we're doing a massive back to you giveaway, right? Like, because when this is all over, it is so time to get back to you. I don't know about you, I have kids at home, so I'm trying to work from home. I'm Zooming all day, got the kids, got the husband working from home, and I love him, and coffee's made in the morning, and that's great, but I need some time back to me. So, there's manicures, pedicures, massages, there's shopping, there's skincare, there's a wine tour. So I really want you to go and check that out. You can find it on my Facebook page, on either one of them, or on my website, fdlphoto.com. And thank you again to everyone who joined us today. Please take care of yourself, stay happy, stay healthy, keep diving into your business during all of our social distancing, and reach out to Tabitha if you need a really good cry or if you really need a really good pick-me-up.
It's always good. Thank you. It's really lovely to connect today, and I wish everyone health and safety, and have a great rest of your day.
Bye-bye, you all. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.